Ever dreamt of building a brand that stands not just for profit, but for purpose, people, and unyielding passion? Well, today's episode is all about vision, mission, and the magic of hope. I'm chuffed to bits to introduce you to a star student of ours, a true visionary, and an AMS graduate from 2022, Anwulika Okonjo. She's not just a graduate. Anwulika is the force behind Ijeruka, an EdTech gem enabling folks to learn from the best African and Afro-diasporic minds. We'll dive deep into the heart of building a community that feels like home. How do you make space for every voice, every little bit of feedback? We'll answer that question. But also, how do you shape a brand that resonates with every heartbeat of your mission? And a gentle reminder that we all need. Hope isn't just an emotion. It's a discipline, it's a commitment. Anwulika will share her wisdom on fostering hope, even when the going gets tough, because goodness knows if we need that sometimes. Ready for a dose of inspiration, strategy, and a whole lot of heart? May this class begin. I've really missed, actually. I'm gonna dive deep into this bit as well. But it's one of those things where I realize actually how much time passes and we don't realize. I'm saying this because the reason why I got in touch with you, aside from just checking in how you are, which I'm doing my best with all my graduates, but I just saw a lot of things coming out for you. And, I realized that has been such an evolution, which we'll talk about throughout for sure, but of the beginning of the seed where you wanted to create. And obviously the reason why you joined us for the certification, and then coming into fruition and also starting to launch opportunities for your community to actually get the training and the support they need. But it's funny how time warps. And I'm sure it feels the same to you, right? Like it feels like it's been 5 minutes since you graduated and since you've done with that, and then you started a new process, but also feels forever since you've been working on the next steps, right?
Yeah, it definitely does. I do think the time has passed really, really quickly. And when I, joined the program, it really was just the, very small seed of an idea. And it was joining the course was one of the first things I did to really kind of like make it real, to invest in myself and to invest in this idea and like actually try and move it into being. Yeah, it's crazy how things have just kind of evolved so quickly. And partly that's been because I felt a lot more confident to kind of just go full steam ahead. And one of the things that I've just been learning, like being an entrepreneur and is that you do have to pick up skills really fast. And so the resources that you can gather, around you, the teachers that you have, the courses that you take, they're all immensely valuable. And it's like also dedicated time where I can just like focus on building, because I was working at the time as well. So it was like, this is my dedicated space to really just be pouring into Ijeruka, at the very early stages. So yeah, I really appreciated it. And it's crazy how quickly things have gone.
It's so important what you mentioned, and thank you so much for sharing actually about the balance between investing in ourselves and also then making the time, but then remembering that we're also spending the time building actually our ideas and the next steps. And I want to ask you, since I know that now you're also starting to support people, which is so exciting, with obviously the next steps themselves, which we'll get to in a moment for sure. I want to ask you, what would you say to somebody who is also having that seed of an idea, as you mentioned you had yourself, is struggling to take that next step? What would you mention to your community as well, if you wanted to give them that helping hand or that reminder?
I actually watched something earlier today. It was a TikTok with I don't know if you know Candice Bratwaite. I think that's how you pronounce her name. She was talking about being unrealistic and how important it is to be unrealistic. And I think that a lot of the time when we have an idea, we get caught up in like, how is this actually, trying to think 10 steps ahead and figure out how, basically just going through all the problems and all the reasons why it shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, why it's going to be difficult. And I think that being unrealistic is actually really important. Sometimes you just need to be like, I'm just going to do it. Because at the end of the day, really, what do you have to lose? You don't really have that much to lose. I mean, maybe depending on what you're building, maybe a little bit of cash, maybe a little bit of time and sleep, but you gain so much more from just diving in, even if you fail. The way that you grow and the things that it could lead to just make it worth it. So I would say, like, be unrealistic, and also just know that like there really isn't any downside, um, especially if you're pacing yourself. So yeah.
It's kind of interesting because I love the idea of the different connotation of words and what words means as well. And it's kind of that idea that we think about unrealistic and we think about something negative, but then it's kind of flipping it on its head as well and thinking about it as like that little fuel to be okay. That is like almost that impossible kind of idea. And then like what is really impossible anyway, and kind of flipping it on its head too. And kind of going back to that and just try and push ourselves to build something new, because at the end of the day you have been building something completely new as well. So I'll let you actually explain that a bit too, because we kind of planted the seeds about you planting the seed and what you wanted to build, and the community and the courses as well that are coming out of it. So we'd love for you to give us a bit of insights on the origin actually of your journey from, again, as you say, leaving the job now, yay, and starting taking the next steps.
Yeah, so Ijeruka is a Pan-African digital learning community. I launched it at the beginning of this year, 2023, but I kind of been working on it throughout 2022. And initially, it's kind of a culmination of different things because initially I just kind of saw like what is happening in the world in the sense of like, there are really big challenges that we're facing, not just as people of African descent, which is, who the platform is primarily sort of like geared towards, but just in general, I think there are really important conversations happening. And I saw that people are seeking out increasingly spaces to learn about that. And also, but from a point of view that is like hopeful, grounded in reality, but hopeful, and that equips you with a sense that you can actually do something about it. I had the opportunity to curate courses for another platform that I think was doing an amazing job, but a lot of their audience was older white women, and absolutely fine. But I just saw the need to kind of like create something that spoke directly to my community as well, and to open up those opportunities. And so Ijeruka, like the entire idea is uplifting the wealth of wisdom people of African descent around the world hold, especially in relation to the most compelling questions of our time, whether it is the impacts of AI and technology and society, or climate change, or even just social relationships and cultures and the ways that we are evolving as human beings and what it takes to build better societies, platforming voices that we don't usually get to hear from, but are incredibly wise and profound, and doing so in a way that makes people feel comfortable, welcome, celebrated in their own identities. And I think that it's been going really well so far. It's become more than just the courses themselves. It really is about the community. And it's just crazy how like taking the sort of simple marketing principles that I learned has just kind of catalyzed, because it's really just found like I've been so surprised, because obviously being a startup, you don't have a ton of budget to be able to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on ad spend. It's just a little bit, but like knowing how to like, share our story and our message and positioning things in a particular way, and then obviously some more strategic planning, Ejerica has just naturally found it's the right people, or the right people have found us. And so yeah, it's been growing very, very quickly, and I'm just really excited about like the community that's being built kind of on its own as well. Like I'm here, but like it's like almost beyond me in a sense.
You know that the best community hosts and the best communities actually are the ones where the host knows how to step up when is needed, but also step back to become the facilitator of the conversations that are happening, which I'm sure at some point in some regards I mentioned probably in our community design lesson, because I'm really passionate about it, because I think there's so many misconceptions about what communities are supposed to be or can be. And so it sounds like naturally it just happened through what you've built because of the understanding of why you wanted to build it, which I think it's so important.
Yeah, I definitely see myself as a facilitator more than anything else. And I think that like just within we have like live courses, as well as like workshops and events. And what I've noticed is that, I curate, my role is a facilitator and a curator. So I curate the space, I bring people together and I share the sort of core values and message and principle, like why is this space here and how do we want to kind of hold it? And that's really the most that I need to do. I might sort of like, kind of like a conductor, like, help conduct things a little bit. But for the most part, people even have started to request to form their own peer groups and their own conversations and share resources with each other. And I think that that's the power of like, once you do have that core message and mission and it resonates with people, like you're able to communicate it and it resonates with people and the right people are drawn to it, you don't actually need to do a ton to then kind of like keep hammering it home. They will just kind of take it on themselves and run with it. And I guess like that's how the community grows.
That is such an important point as well. And it goes back to that idea of learning and listening as well, which, dare I say, is a very understated skill for marketers and also entrepreneurs, because it can be hard to find the balance between taking the time to listen and understand and implement. I was going to say it was like implement, and at the same time actually then being able to act and change and obviously and keep on going. As you say, like bootstrapped startups, that's the word. We do what we got to do in order to keep on going. But I think that reflection piece and the listening piece is so important, which leads me to the bad news that we're now going to be back in class. I'm so sorry, but you're teaching today, so we're fine. So class is in session right now. I got a couple of questions for you. And for once, I'm going to step back from my teaching chair. Not that I have a teaching chair, that will be interesting though. And I'm actually going to ask some questions. And I'm sure that some of these lessons will come from just the experience that you've had with Ijeruka, like so far. And so the first one, which is one of my favorite questions, is what is the one thing that you can teach our fellow listeners and students and fellow graduates in a minute or so that is related to your journey? It can be about the entrepreneurial journey, it can be the marketing element, or it can even just be about the community, something that you learn from that. What would be one practical thing that you can teach others that they can take and maybe do for themselves as well?
Yeah, I think so. The thing that I really, really love is, how to build a brand that is rooted in a mission, like a purpose-led business, and make it beautiful as well. I think that's probably that's probably what I'm figuring out that I'm pretty good at. I think business can sometimes, especially the way that it's traditionally been taught, can feel a little bit cold at times, or at least that has been the, I guess, predominant narrative. Like you have men in suits and like, like you have to be, you make just decisions based on money and the bottom line and things like that. But it's actually, I see it as being like the entrepreneurial journey as being almost kind of like my form of artistic or creative expression. And that makes it so much more fulfilling for me. And the biggest part of that is actually learning how to build a brand that is oriented around a core set of values and a core mission, and that you can continuously return to. And I think when you have that, like what I've noticed is like I don't really have to say much, like whether it's our teachers that are, we're asking to be part of our programs, our like customers who are our co-learners and community members, they automatically kind of say it themselves. Like the first thing they always say to me is like, your branding really resonates. That's probably my gift right now.
That is a great. I mean, I'm reading between the lines, but that to me is one of the gifts of creativity as well and the artistic expression. And it doesn't have to be that way. I just want to say for anybody who's listening, I'm like, I'm a marketer or I'm a creator or I'm an entrepreneur and I don't have that streak. I'm the analytical one. I'm like, cool, boo. I'm the same actually. I have one side that is very analytical and then one side that is very creative. And just like yourself, I feel eventually we're rooted into our brand. And I just want to add to that because I agree, your branding is really unique and I can really spot it, which is beautiful. You can see it straight away, it jumps out. But for us, it took a bit longer. I just want to say for anybody who's also finding that as a challenge, it took us 2 years to get AMS to actually have the branding that was needed for it to have, to actually represent what it wants to be. And eventually people now are saying, oh, I went on your website and it looks so cool. Oh my God, yes, I can see the branding. That is so you. And it took us a bit longer, but we got there. So it is worth the while exploring that. And I love the fact that the mission or the purpose or who you want to be and how you want your audience to see themselves in the representation, whether it is on social, whether it's in the images, whether it is in the wording, it really then connects them deeper to you. They see themselves in that, and then they're more willing to take the next step, which I think is really, really powerful as well. And now I want to look at some of the things that you have learned in the last year or so, we'll say. Is there a tactic, a framework, a strategy that you learned from somebody else this time that stood out to you? What would that one be?
Yeah, I think like I didn't used to think about funnels until I joined Alt Marketing School's course. I had never thought about the concept of funnels. And the funny thing is that like I like do a lot of like journey mapping and things like that. So it's, it would have made sense to think of marketing in that sense. So I think having a comprehensive funnel and actually being able to think about like what are the different touch points and what are the different messages that your target audience will receive at those stages and what type of information they're looking for is really valuable. And to couple it with like different types of marketing, I guess, outputs or strategies. So like social media is like a lot of our community members come from social media, Instagram especially. That might be their first interaction. And then wanting to give them an actual experience of, what Ijeruka is about, especially as a courses or events-based type of platform. So giving people just like a little snippet of that in a free program that's maybe shorter than like, our longer courses. And yeah, it's just a nice way to engage. So yeah, I'd say like the tactic that I've learned is having a clear funnel, and in that funnel, just having like different approaches. And one of those approaches is like give things away for free, like give knowledge away, experiences away, like just like be generous in how you interact with your audience. You don't lose anything from it.
It's the daily podcast dance. Whenever somebody says, like, I always get my little daily podcast dance, it just happens because you said something super important, which is about being generous with your knowledge. And it's so interesting as two platforms that are very educational driven and knowledge driven. You feel like you can't or you shouldn't, or you don't want to give away some of your most valuable information for free. You feel a bit worried about that. And there's an element of quote unquote, 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 gatekeeping. You're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. But actually, I heard it first a couple of months back in a video, and now I keep repeating it to everybody else as well. Actually, giving away your most valuable content for free can be really, really powerful, especially when you are obviously a content information driven business and company, because at the end of the day, people will come to you for the support, the knowledge, the accountability. Those are the elements of the experience. So it's actually just giving them the understanding and the trust that you have the information that they're looking for. And it's a balance, and it's a very fine balance to actually go beyond like those fears, because there can be fears. So thank you for mentioning that, because being generous with the knowledge that you give away is really powerful. And as you say, if you tap and adapt it with the stage of the funnel that your audience is in, you actually build a gentle journey that then takes them to actually want to commit. And I find that is that balance between the two. So I'm really glad that we introduced our very specially shaped funnels, because they're not the traditional funnels, but as you say, they're still a journey. So it's a journey in itself that is beautiful. Now, since we're both teachers in our own right, since we're both teaching and educating and supporting people, this is one of my favorite questions, but I'm really excited to ask it to you because I want to see what comes up, which is, what is something that you have unlearned recently, and how did it improve the quality of your life or work?
I'm currently in the process of, not unlearned yet, but in the process of unlearning a hyperfixation on money. I think like it's really important, obviously, like if you are an entrepreneur or someone who's building a business, to have the mindset of trying to be profitable and sustainable and all of those things. But what I've realized is that when you fixate on it, you are less likely to take risks. You're less likely to actually do the things that will generate that income, that will draw people towards you. And it almost kind of produces like a fear-based mindset when really what you need to pour your energy and attention into, yes, do the strategic work and all that stuff, but like what you need to pour your energy and attention into is the content, the experience, the customer service, like all of these, the marketing, like all of these things that actually will help you grow as opposed to just like kind of like fixating on the numbers. It obviously is like a balance at times. Like you do need to be conscious of that, and you need to be like, on top of it and everything. But I think there's so much more to like building something than just the money will come, basically. Like that's what I've realized is it's going to come. Like you just need to actually focus on producing the best possible experience and product or platform or whatever it is that you're building for the audience, and understanding them and their needs and their interests.
What do you find are some of the practical ways for you to get that feedback and that understanding? You sprinkled a few in as well, Anwulika, which I love. But I was thinking, is there anything, like a couple of the ones that really worked for you when it comes to your community?
Like getting feedback? Yeah. Okay. Well, so the first thing is people need to know that you actually are interested in receiving feedback. So, like, as many times as you possibly can, like, just keep reiterating that that's something you care about. Like, people don't know that, you are you're a person who cares about what they have to say until you tell them. And that goes for like any, aspect of life. So you have to make that clear. And then I think like making it as easy as possible and making it as inviting as possible. So what I've done is like, on our website, we might have integrations, things like Hotjar or, mini surveys, things like that just pop up and are simple, like 1 to 2 questions. Also the ability to schedule calls, and even if it's 15 minutes, but again, like that thing of generosity. Okay, if I have a 15-minute slot where, someone has asked to, speak with me, don't have a hard out necessarily. Obviously, this can be hard with calendars, but like if someone is expressing to you, if someone who's a potential customer or an existing customer is excited about what you're doing and they want to tell you the reasons why they're excited or what you could improve, or ideas they have, I think like being generous with the time that you allow for that can be really valuable because you don't know what could come of it. And so I think it's like a combination of like use the tools that you have at your disposal, things like Hotjar. Tally is another great like free, if you can, if you don't want to pay for Typeform, Tally is a great form builder that I use all the time. And just looking for free tools like that to give people the opportunity to give feedback, and then also make space and time in your calendar, send people a link so they can book a call with you and just speak. It doesn't necessarily have to always be a call because you're planning to sell to them. It could just be like, a conversation. That's worked really well for me.
I had a little mini dance again when you mentioned Tally, because it's great because it also integrates with Notion, which makes me very happy. Like bringing everything back into one place. And I'm actually gonna go a bit deeper into this point. Maybe the tip will come back from that, which is I love the mentions of the feedback, and especially feedback that can be related also to what you do and also understanding people's needs and their openness. How have you found you were able to get feedback or clarity around whether the mission and the purpose and the vision of what you were trying to build was, like with Ijeruka, was actually clear to your audience? Because that's another thing. We talk about brands rooted in mission and vision that is strong, which is what we do and what we teach as well. But I find that sometimes we know our story, we know our mission, but how do we know that it hits home? And then from the sound of it, it does hit home for your audience. Has always been the case? Or did you actually need to get their input to make sure that it would also be a meeting of the two,
Yeah, definitely. I think this is actually the most difficult thing because even for me, like I can be quite long-winded. So when you're building a brand around the social purpose, you can have like I want to change the world, and so there's so much that can go into it, and you can end up, sharing a brand story or a mission or whatever that's very complex and may not hit the way that you would expect it to. For Ijeruka, it's been a lot of iteration, like just trying to like simplify, really kind of get to the point. I think I had a mission statement that was like a paragraph before before And so, just kind of like trying to whittle it down. But to the question about like where did the two intersect, I think you don't know until you actually put something out there. So like when we first started, I had like my own idea. I like came up with the mission, vision, all these different things, messaging, and you don't actually know if people are going to respond to it or even get what you're trying to say until you put it out. And then I think once it's out there, I listen to, for the people that it does draw, I listen to how they're describing it in their own words. Basically, like taking, what my customers are saying and then editing our messaging to basically reflect their own words back to them. And again, like, because I obviously, as someone who works in the company or, as part of this, building this, I know what the essence of what I'm trying to create. So I might do some tweaks and things like that to elevate it. You just have to listen to like what people are saying in their own words and maybe actually ask people directly, like even if you haven't launched, like you can tell them your idea, explain it to them in as the best way that you possibly can, and then ask them to tell you what they heard or what they think it is, right? Or what they would be drawn to, and then refine based on that. I think other things that are really valuable is looking at like what your peers are doing. So for Ijeruka, it's interesting because we don't have like necessarily a direct peer, which is part of why I started the platform, because there wasn't anything like it that exists. But there are definitely like smaller communities that are doing things that are, similar or resonant. I look at like how have they communicated. And so I think like drawing from, because we're going to share similar audiences. So I think even trying to not copy for sure, but like look at what is working and what even you may be drawn to in the messaging of like other people that are doing something similar to you.
One of my favorite bits at all times is about that kind of, I call it like the audience actually telling you which words to use, which is actually using your audience's words and reflecting it back to them. That's one of my favorite pieces when it comes to the kind of audience and persona and understanding of your audience that we tend to forget. We tend to look at a lot of other variables that we want to focus on. And that can be great when it comes to some elements of what we're trying to build. But when it comes, as you say, to missions and visions, and also I love that you shared about the mission statement being really long, because apologies everybody, I don't remember exactly, but I know that at the very least 70% of the students, whenever they send me through the mission statement from the assignment, I'm like, it's too long. And then, but it's because a lot of us are passionate, and it's our thing, it's our vision, is something that we love. But it's natural for us to actually find it that it's really long, and it's great to have a version of that, because then we can, as you say, we can whittle it down. And the more impactful it is actually is when there are a couple of words that really jump out, because that's what your audience is going to remember. That's a great reminder of that. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that too, because, I say it and I know that I say it, but I'm not the only one. So thank you very much for that. We're into quick fire now. We had a nice little stroll all around the ups and downs of community building and entrepreneurship and branding. But now it's time for quick fire.
Okay.
Anwulika, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, 2 choices. You keep the one that you like the most. Spotify playlist or podcast?
Ooh, Spotify playlist. Yeah.
Was it a hard one?
It was hard. Yeah, it was hard.
What is a podcast that you've been listening to recently that like was kind of like made you kind of think,
I really like The Diary of a CEO. Yeah, I think it just has really great guests on there. So yeah, it's a really good podcast.
Excellent recommendation, excellent choice. But we still got for Spotify playlist, which again, still very close to my heart, is a hard one. I know we started hard. We might ease up now with another one. Voice notes or texts?
Text. Yeah.
Straight on. Very easy, this one. Next, carousels or reels?
Ooh, I'm a carousel person, but reels are very effective.
That's actually where I go back with a follow-up question then, which is, does this change depending on whether you are creating the carousels and the reels or you're consuming them? Or would you say the answer would be the same for both?
I think I actually prefer carousels. I think they can be more informative, and I think people can do really cool things with the designs. I mean, yeah, I'm not a Reels person as much. I think video content is awesome, but I kind of like prefer to look at carousels on Instagram anyways. But on TikTok, I'm all for the video content. Yeah.
I love it. So it depends on where we are as well. I see, I
Yeah.
see. So actually, going back to video, I think I know the answer now. TikTok or YouTube?
Oh, that's hard.
Oh no. Oh no.
That's actually hard. YouTube. Oh man, that's great. I'm a new to TikTok, but I love it. Okay. Can it be a tie? It's a tie.
We have a first tie ever. I'm not joking. We have a first tie ever. Okay, I'll take the tie. I'll take the tie. But we can't do a tie for the next one then. We use our tie bonus. Meme or GIF?
GIF. Yeah.
That's my team. That's my team. I'm always out for GIF team, and then everybody says memes. I'm like, no, I still love you. It's still totally fine. But GIFs is a special place to my heart. So
Yeah.
excellent. I'm really, really glad. I think a GIF can work in so many ways. I can say so many things. Obviously, memes are a very specific kind of scenario, which is super fun. But a good GIF says 1,000 words.
Yeah.
I use a lot of. The problem with me is like, I use a lot of the most random. I go from Parks and Rec all the way to The Office, all the way to get some random pop culture and then puppies. There's literally no rhyme or reasons for my GIF. Sorry, I don't know if that's the same, but I actually have a GIF folder full of GIFs that I can use at any given time.
It's the same for me. It's the same for me. Although lately I also really like sharing TikToks as my reaction stuff. Like so yeah, I'm one of those people that downloads TikToks and shares them and just has a folder of TikToks now. So
Oh my god! Yes, okay, that's next level. That should be the quick fire. Should have a third option of like TikTok reactions. I might have to add that too as well. So thank you. That's a great idea actually. I got two more questions. One is, if you were to describe alt marketing school, having experienced it yourself, in one word, which word would you choose?
ooh, there's so many things, but I'm gonna say fun. I think obviously informative and all these other things, I'm cheating a little bit. But at the core of it, like the experience was actually fun. And I think that that comes down to your personality as well. So, and it's infused into into alt marketing school. So yeah.
I'll take that. I'll take that. Thank you. And it goes back to what we said at the beginning, just to reiterate. It's generally like whether it's a community, but sometimes when it's even a course or an experience, a lot of who we are actually kind of comes across even when you then let your students shine, which I hope is still what I managed to achieve every single time that we show up with the cohort, is just allowing you to create the connections and talk to each other and learn from each other. But still, you kind of add a bit of yourself so that the students or your community are motivated to show up and to commit and to talk to each other. So I'm really, really glad. Now, though, I'm going to actually finish with a bit of a hard one because I'm going to bestow upon you a power. I'm going to give you a power. Anwulika, you have a very special power, which is the power to send one message to everybody on their phone. So if you could broadcast one message onto everybody's phone, what would that message say?
Okay, well, so this is the core message for Ijeruka that I just think is needed right now, which is that hope is a discipline. And so, we're in crazy times right now in the world. And I think that like what we need is like, hope and like joy and, just all the good things. But also it's something that you have to actively cultivate in the ways that you build the people around you, the community, what you invest in, like in terms of like how you pour into yourself, whether that's the types of courses that you're taking or the things that you do in your free time. Like all of these things are you're practicing nurturing hope, in my opinion. So I would say that hope is powerful and it is a discipline would be my message to the world, basically. Yeah.
That's a good one, and that's a powerful one as well. That is almost like a reminder, should be set as a message and then added to your reminders as well. It's like a lot of other things. I genuinely believe, and I agree with you, that it's important to find, to reconnect with ourselves and tap into whether it's hope, whether it's gratitude, whether it's a combination of both. Sometimes even kindness, I think, can be a bit of a discipline towards ourselves and others. So absolutely love the message. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Now, if anybody would love to connect with you and Ijeruka and find out more about how to get involved, can you please tell us where they should go?
Yeah, awesome. So you can find Ijeruka, which is spelled Ijeruka, on Instagram, which is like our main social media home, but also on LinkedIn, just with our name. And also Ijeruka.com. I'm actually very excited because we have our new website coming soon. So that's going to be our little digital playground. And now we'll have the dedicated community space as well. So there's lots of really exciting things coming.
Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a pleasure to catch up as always. And I cannot wait to see all the next iteration of Ijeruka and wherever this is going to lead you.
Thank you so much, Fab. It was great speaking with you and catching up.
In the meantime, please go and check out Ijeruka and everything that Anwulika and all the team is up to. For now, as always, it's been a pleasure. Class dismissed.